A lot of people think that paying off debt, especially stuff like student loans or credit cards, people think it's this super difficult thing that it'll just take a lifetime to get done. But as someone who's been in college for years and is roughly 6 months away from paying off all of his student loans, I can honestly say you can make it easier where it doesn't have to be a lifelong stressor for you. Now, for what it's worth, I'm no financial expert. All these things I'm about to say are there's things that I've learned throughout my financial journey and just implemented in my own life just to better myself. But that said, there are a few things that I do think that can significantly help people when paying off debt, and specifically student loans. And I just want to give a few tips that have helped me. It might not solve all your problems, but it's something. I might as well share whatever knowledge I have. And I don't want to make it seem like I'm just complaining all the time. All right? Cool. So, first things first, if you have student loans or credit card debt, or any debt really, you have to pay off more than a monthly minimum. I know that seems pretty straightforward, but I think for a lot of people, they just think paying off the monthly minimum is okay. They just think if they just make that minimum payment, they'll just float by and eventually their debt will just be gone. Or even worse, to them, it's just a monthly payment where they don't even think about paying it off. It's just one more bill to pay and not something that you could just get rid of. But yeah, you got to pay off more than a monthly minimum. Like that interest every month will eat you alive and just destroy your finances. Like for instance, I have student loans. I'm not gonna get into all the nitty gritty of the pros and cons of student loans, but generally there's two types. There's subsidized and unsubsidized. With subsidized loans, you don't have any interest while you're in school. Unsubsidized, you do. And you technically don't have to make payments until 6 months after you graduate, but the unsubsidized loan is still accruing interest each month. So let's say you have a 10K unsubsidized loan on a 10-year plan with 8% interest. If you were just to make the minimum payments every month, which I'm pretty sure is around 120 for about 10 years, you would end up paying an extra $4,500. Now, take that same loan, same interest, but you pay 300 a month. You would save over $3,000. And on top of that, that 10-year loan would only take you 3 years to pay off. A massive difference. Because if you just make the minimum payments, the interest, it snowballs. And it keeps adding over time. And what you owe just keeps going up with it. Like for instance, let's take that same 10K loan. And say you take it out freshman year, and you don't make any payments until you graduate. Assuming it takes you 4 years to graduate, I know for a lot of people it can take longer, and take it from me, it definitely can. But off the bat, the second you walk across that stage and get your diploma, that 10K has already increased to over 13,000, almost 14,000. And here's the crazy part. The time it'll take you to pay off that loan with your monthly minimum would more than double. Like it would take you over 20 years to pay all that off. This is one of the quickest and most dangerous ways people fall into like having debt for years. Say you graduate high school at 18, 4 years of college, so now you're 22. Having debt until you're 42 years old is insane. Assuming you don't have any car loans or credit cards or a mortgage. And then now you have more debt on top of that. Like, seriously, check all the math if you don't believe me. Like, I'm currently in college. I know what it's like to have student loans. And right now, I'm so close to being debt free, like 6 months away. I probably cannot explain into words how much of a stress that would be off my shoulders. Like, in those 10, 20 years you have that student loans, I can guarantee something in your life is going to happen where you have to take out more debt or you'll just be paying off something. Maybe your car breaks down. Gotta pay rent, hospital bills, credit cards, who knows? I mean, student loans themselves are already a beast. Like with school and just life in general, it can be pretty soul crushing. So add anything on top of that, it will just destroy you. So if there's anything, and I mean anything you take away from this, please pay off more than the minimum each month. Like, try and pay off your debt as fast as possible. Debt will just pile up on top of you and just destroy your finances. Also, when it comes to these student loans, knowing which ones to pay off first can really help you. Like I said, there's two types: subsidized and unsubsidized. The subsidized loans don't incur interest. So ideally, you want to pay off all your debt as fast as possible. But because you're in school, there's no interest occurring. So you have that grace period where you don't have to make any payments. Like, say you take out a 10K loan that's subsidized. In a year later, assuming you're still in school, it's still going to be 10K. Like, there's no interest. So if you have to, you can pause payments. Like, say your car does break down or you have high credit cards. You can put your student loans on pause for a minute. I'm not saying entirely, but just for a minute, and then fix this other stuff and then get right back on track. Unsubsidized, whole different story. Interest occurs no matter what. Sure, as long as you're in school, you don't have to make payments, but you're still going to owe more money each month due to interest. So, assuming you have one or the other, you always want to pay off unsubsidized first, solely based on the fact that you'll just have interest coming. And if you can knock that principal down faster, the less interest you'll have to pay. And then eventually, just pay off the entire debt, and it's gone. But outside of student loans and debts like that, one thing that's really helped me is just track my finances in general. Like, obviously, you want to track your debts, but just tracking where your everyday spending goes also helps a lot. I remember a few years back, I was dating this woman, and she explained like how she tracked all her finances on spreadsheets. And at the time, I thought this is a little overkill. Like, I get it, but I've got money in my account. I never had my card declined, and I've got a good idea of like how much money I'm spending. You know, I don't need to just track everything. But later that night, I got a little curious. Like, how much money am I actually saving? So I load up one of those basic budgeting templates you find on Excel, and I start filling it out. And I'm just kind of rounding off numbers because I'm pretty sure, I'm good with money. And for that entire month, I saved a whopping 35 bucks. And at that point, I'm like, wait, that can't be right. So I started going back, checking the numbers, adding up every penny I could find, and added it all up again. And it said, yeah, bro, you really saved 35 bucks and like 21 cents. And at first I was like, you know, I've been eating out a lot this month. I just bought this new Apple Watch. That's why my savings are low. So I said, let me do last month's, month before that. That month, I'll definitely have a ton of money saved up. I did the same thing. Added up every penny, and I was down like 200 bucks. It was right then and there. I decided I need to start tracking my spending. Because even though I had a general idea of like where my money was going for the most part, I realized I wasn't as sure as I thought I was. And these spreadsheets can show me exactly where that money is going and how I'm spending it. Like, what's my biggest spenders and what can I, cut out of my budget and cut down on? Like, when I first started this, I was paying an extra 75 bucks for a gym. I was going to maybe once or twice a week at most, while also paying 200 bucks for a kickboxing gym. I was going to 3 to 4 times a week. So I just dropped that regular gym fee and started doing some push ups at home. Like, it might not sound like a lot, but little expenses here and there, they add up. Random gym fees, subscriptions, going to the gas station, buying chips. Like, on its own, it's not a lot, but it definitely adds up. And now I've got a spreadsheet for everything. I've got one to use for month to month, one that shows my entire year, one for my debt, one for my credit cards. Pretty much all of my finances. I've got something to help me track this stuff. I basically turned it into a game where I try to see, the least amount of money I can spend and try and save month to month. And I'm not going crazy with it. Like, Like that hyper frugal stuff is truly insane. But I'll skip going out to eat every now and then, just cook at home. Get it pop in the rice and beans. And I might walk somewhere instead of driving. Assuming it's reasonable. I'm not gonna walk a marathon every day. That's insane. But where I live, I'm like less than 2 miles away from my local Walmart, which also happens to be where I work. And some people might think it's too far, but a nice 20, 30-minute walk in the morning is not gonna kill me. And if it saves me a little bit of money with these insane gas prices right now, so what? Get some exercise, burn off some of these calories, lose some weight, get fit, all the good stuff. And plus, I'm naturally a runner, so 2 miles is nothing to me. But yeah, tracking my finances has been a huge benefit to my life when it comes to getting better with money. Just knowing where my money's going, how much I'm spending, cutting out, all the BS. That it really does help. It's honestly probably one of those beneficial things that I've done for my finances. And lastly, just knowing how to cook, to be honest. Once I tracking my finances, I realized that going out to eat and food in general was probably one of my biggest spenders. And people always say, eating healthy is like super expensive, but I guarantee you it's not. Rice and beans, vegetables, lettuce, those are going to be your cheaper groceries. Like meat right now is super expensive. And it doesn't have to be one or the other. You can have a bunch of leafy greens, like a salad or a kale or whatever, throw in some beans, a little bit of ground turkey, and that's a meal right there. Super nutritious. It tastes good. Tons of protein, tons of fiber, everything you need at a reasonable price. And then as soon as you start learning how to make certain things, you can kind of switch it up. Like substitute, like maybe instead of turkey, you have chicken or beef every now and then, or maybe some fish. Put it on rice or quinoa or kale or lettuce or whatever you want, and you start switching stuff out. Finding out what you actually like. Maybe throw in some pasta every now and then. And because you're pretty much paying for all these cheap ingredients, it'll be way cheaper in the long run. And sure, eat out every now and then. I'm not saying like completely cut out fast food. I have snacks every now and then. It's not gonna kill you. Assuming, you have the room for it in your budget. Because if you're swimming in debt, that's one thing. If you're just drowning in debt, then yeah, maybe skip the fast food. Maybe, hunker down the beans and the rice for a while. But for the most part, you can probably squeeze in, McDonald's or Krispy Kreme every now and then. It's not gonna kill you. Not gonna destroy your finances. Like the same way one bag of chips is not gonna make you fat, one bag of chips also isn't gonna destroy your finances. So, live your life, but at the same time, try to get these things under control for your betterment. But yeah, those are my little tips on how to save a little bit of money, how to pay off your debt a little quicker. I'm no Dave Ramsey, but these things have helped me, so I figured, hey, maybe it'll help someone else. But what do you guys think? You have any tips, tricks? Has anything I said actually resonate with you guys? Let me know in the comments down below. If you've made it this far, go ahead and like the video, subscribe if you haven't already. I'll catch you guys in the next one. I'm out.